Well, hello, and welcome to This Is Me, a place where the me is not a who, but rather a what. So, what is me, or MHE? It's an acronym which stands for Mental Health Empathy. Now, empathy is defined as the ability to understand and share the feelings, perspectives, and experiences of another. Now, before we go any further and discuss the differences between mental health empathy and mental health awareness, we need to take a closer look at that definition and look at some of those key words inside of it. Now, we're going to start with the word ability. Ability means it's something that you can do, but don't have to do. For instance, you have the ability to put a parachute on your back and go jump out of an airplane, but you don't have to. Understanding something is very different from knowing something. For instance, you may know that the engine in your car makes it go, but do you understand how the engine in your car makes it go? Do you understand the inner workings of a combustible engine? Feelings. Feelings are something that can be mental, emotional, or physical. And all of these feelings play a role into who we are as a person. And perspectives is the next word. And this is how we perceive the world around us, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And a lot of the times, those perspectives can dictate our feelings. But at the same time, our feelings can dictate those perspectives. And then, last but not least, I want to look at experiences because experiences are not just something that we have done in life, but also what has been done to us. We've all experienced something in life that we didn't really sign up for, like stepping on a Lego or getting rear ended in traffic. And these unsigned for experiences can form a future that we definitely didn't want. For instance, every time you get in your car after being rear ended, your hands begin to sweat, your heart begins to pound, and the only thing that's going across your mind is when will it happen again? Now, mind you, this wasn't your fault. So, what's an easy way to put empathy? Being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, being able to understand, or at least try to. Okay, now that we have a better understanding of what empathy is, I want to dive into the differences between mental health empathy and mental health awareness. Being aware of something doesn't necessarily mean that you care to the point of action, right? And sometimes that's due to a lack of understanding. If you understood something, you would probably care. Here's an example for you. If your friend gives you a call and says that they've been laid up for the past 3 days with the flu and the runs, chances are you would understand how they're feeling because you yourself have been in the same boat. Now, if your other friend were to call you up and say they've been laid up on the couch because their depression has been overwhelming, if you've never been in that state where you've been stuck on your couch for 3 days because your depression has been overwhelming, you may not quite understand what they're going through. And so it's a lot easier for us to give grace to our friend who's been laid up for 3 days with the flu because we understand what that person's going to. We understand how they feel. But for the person who's been laid up for 3 days under heavy depression, we may not give them the same grace. Now, giving grace is a deliberate choice to extend favor and understanding, often helping people to feel supported and accepted and forgiven rather than condemned. If your friend laid up for the flu for 3 days would have told you they haven't showered in 3 days, you may understand it. But if your friend who's been laid up with depression for 3 days tells you they haven't showered in 3 days, you may think it's gross. But they're one and the same. They're both a sickness. So, why is mental health empathy such an important topic to me? Why do I feel like we need to kind of start talking about this now? And it's because what may seem like a little bit of grace to you may just actually be enough grace to save someone's life. Listen, with mental health diagnoses on the rise, the more as a society we can relate to one another, offering that grace will just come naturally. People like myself, I don't need a handicap placard. I don't need wheelchairs. I don't need, an elevator. I mean, well, my knees are getting bad, but at least not yet. What I do need is an acceptance that I'm different. I mean, at least by societal standards, my brain operates differently. But here's the cool thing. You're not alone in having to make that acceptance. You're not alone in having to give grace, because I have to accept it myself. I have to give grace to myself. We have to give grace to ourselves, because a lot of the time we can be our own worst enemies. We feel shame. We feel embarrassment. We feel anger. And we even feel disdain towards ourselves at times. So when the outside world just begins to pile on and make us feel worse and worse for some of these things that are outside of our control, there's not much left for us to do but hate ourselves even more. And so this vicious cycle continues and continues and continues as we slowly circle down this drain into a darkness. But that grace we've spoken about, offering that grace, whatever it may be in that time of darkness, whether it's a nap, food, encouragement, space, a hug, an energy drink, or just an ear that can listen, that can help slow the spiral. And in that moment, when the waters have begun to calm and the spiral has began to slow, we get a chance to catch our breaths. We get a chance to reach for the edge and pull ourselves out of that spiral and fight for our lives that much longer. Who exactly is this series for? Well, it's not necessarily for any particular demographic group or diagnosis, but rather society as a whole. Because who doesn't need grace these days? Who doesn't need the moment to step back and reset their thoughts every once in a while? Who doesn't need the surprise coffee from their coworker the morning they got a flat tire on the way into work? But here's the biggest thing. You can't expect grace when no grace is given. If you're not one to give grace, then you can't expect to receive grace. If you refuse to help your friend move when it is time for them to move, don't expect them to help you move when it's time for you to move. And the best way for all of us to understand and know what kind of grace really needs to be extended is to empathize, to put yourself in their shoes, to understand, or at least try to. Now, this message is to those of you that struggle like myself. It is ultimately up to you to key in the important people in your life as to what may bring you down. And that's so they can offer the grace that you need. And letting them know the grace that you need is another way to be very helpful to yourself. And sometimes it's as simple as letting your boss know that when they email you saying, we need to talk, from that moment until the talk happens, your whole world is shattered. Your brain is running through worst case scenario after worst case scenario after worst case scenario. And you are already looking for new jobs because you're so sure you're going to get fired over who even knows what. But when you arrive at that talk, all he does is ask your opinion for a flyer. Having that conversation, so in the future, he says in the email, we need to talk. I want to get your opinion on this flyer. Or, you're not in trouble, but can we talk? Listen, society's done its part as becoming aware of who we are. We've talked about mental health awareness. They're aware of all the different diagnoses that are out there. And they've stopped shaming us and forcing us into asylums and basements and whatever other demented stuff they used to do. So now it's our time to return the favor. It's our time to show society that we want to be a part of society. We can be a part of society. We want to help be a part of society, and we want to be active in society. But we're a little different, and just because we may be smiling on the outside doesn't mean we just may be on the edge on the inside. But we can't blame those around us for not knowing this if we don't tell them. If we don't key them in, it is ultimately on us. Remember, empathy is a choice at the end of the day. You can choose to have it for your fellow man or not. But so is letting others know how they can be your ally. You can choose to do it. You can choose to let others know how they can help you. But you can't get upset when you feel they are not helping you because you never chose to communicate with them how to do it. Well, thank you for joining me. My name is Bryson Rudd. I'm a level 1 autist with severe ADHD, and I appreciate you joining me on this journey. In future episodes, we're going to be having discussions with other people who, have other diagnoses different than mine, and really diving into what life is really like for them. And we'll dive into what life is like for me with all the fun stuff that goes on up here. But also at the same time, I want to hear from you. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, please leave them down below. If you have a story you want to share, please reach out. This is not a possible movement without all of your involvement out there. And so I greatly appreciate everything. Be you, be happy.